Welcome to SIC 2015, ISG's annual Sourcing Industry Conference, the premier event for global service providers. I'm Sonia Van Sickle. More than 200 industry professionals have gathered here in Dallas for this two-day conference to discuss and debate how digitization is transforming the global services industry. Today, I am speaking with Martin Ford, author of the New York Times bestseller, Rise of the Robots, Technology and the Threat of a Jobless Future. Ford delivered a keynote presentation this morning on day 2 of the SIC. For a reaction on Ford's presentation, I will also be speaking with Michael Beeler, VP Global Advisor Relations for Emphasis, and Steve Hall, Partner Emerging Technologies with ISG. Martin, why do you think robots are such a threat to the human workforce?
Well, they're becoming much more capable, and it's not just robots, it's very often just software. It's all kinds of automation, it's artificial intelligence, and they're beginning to impact not just lower skill, blue-collar jobs, but also skilled jobs, jobs taken by college graduates. So this is something that's going to be disruptive really across the board, I think.
What jobs are most at risk today, would you say?
Well, it's any job that is in some level repetitive, routine, predictable, those types of jobs. And of course, that's a lot of jobs. I mean, a lot of people come to work and they face the same kinds of challenges again and again. And ultimately, nearly all of those jobs are going to be susceptible to this.
You mentioned in your book that the services industry and even white-collar professional jobs, as you said, where human reasoning is most important, will be at risk someday. Are robots really going to be able to replace the job of, say, a lawyer or a school teacher or creative types like, say, writers and artists? And do TV news reporters, should we be worried?
Well, we're beginning to see that. I mean, algorithms are already doing a significant amount of the work that lawyers used to do and that paralegals used to do in things like document review. They can't do everything, of course, but they're getting better and better. I don't think you can say, never in terms of this. I think that TV reporters are safe for the time being. I wouldn't worry too much, but someday, maybe decades from now, it's something that wouldn't be impossible.
What about the creative types, though? Would you say they're at risk as well?
I'd say that they're relatively safe right now, but again, you can never say never. There are algorithms right now that can paint original pictures. There are algorithms that can write symphonies. There are algorithms that have done original designs in electronics and things like that. So there already is a body of research in creative computing. So it's something that over the next couple of decades could become dramatically better.
In terms of future jobs and careers, it seems like there will be more losers than winners, really. Which areas of employment do you expect will grow in our robotic, automatic future?
Well, there certainly are going to be opportunities for people to have the right skill sets. I mean, people that are very technically capable and can do things like developing machine learning applications and so. The problem is that that's a pretty small number of people. I mean, we have to be realistic and say that most people are fairly average in their capability, and the problem may be creating opportunities for everyone in the future.
With technology taking over so much of the work that humans previously did, what does the future of the global sourcing and services industry look like?
Well, that's an industry that right now is focused on sourcing labor from different parts of the world. In the future, one of the sources they're going to have to look at is artificial intelligence. That may become more and more capable and competitive. In many cases, it may mean not sourcing human labor at all, and that's something that I think could really just sort of upend that industry. What we've seen in the past is that offshoring, for example, is how you start off, but then eventually automation takes over more and more of that.
You're painting a pretty bleak picture here. If technology is going to put so many out of work, how will people survive? What's the answer to the jobless future you're foreseeing?
Well, that's going to be a big political challenge. I mean, we can imagine a very optimistic scenario. We can imagine that people don't have to do a job they hate or a job that's dangerous or boring. Machines will do all of that, but it will only be a good thing if people have an income from somewhere. And so ultimately, in the long run, meaning decades from now, I think we might need a radical solution to this. We might need something like a guaranteed income so that everyone will have an income whether they work or not.
Michael, what's your take on Martin Ford's premise that robots are taking over the world and will do most of the work now performed by humans?
I think it's a very interesting discussion that's taking place right now worldwide. And as I was mentioning earlier, last week when I was in India, I caught a BBC program called Intelligence Squared. And they had a panel of folks on both sides of the fence, debating is robotics going to impact positively, negatively our economy. And I think, listen to that, listen to what Martin said. You can spin the story any way you want. I mean, there's all kind of data that you can spin and kind of make it whatever you want it to make. But I think there's a lot of things at play here. I think government impact is going to be huge. What's taking place, particularly with Uber, for example, in the state of California. The state of California is trying to say that, hey, these Uber guys are not contract labor. They're employees. Therefore, they should have more benefits. So if government intervention in some of this, it's going to be kind of tricky to see how this could all play out positively or negatively.
So how will that impact your industry, do you think?
Our industry, from a technology outsourcing perspective, it's very interesting. I mean, where I'm at with emphasis, we're seeing a huge growth. But what we're doing with our companies and all of our clients is our CEO has mandated that we have to take technology innovation to all of our clients. Our 8,000 projects we have going on right now, he has mandated that we have to have and bring forth technology innovation to our clients. Having said that, what's interesting about our company is we had 160,000 employees 5 years ago. We now have 180,000 employees. So while we are, taking innovation and technology, we are still growing as a company from a people perspective. But, we're solving problems nowadays where it used to be just all people. It's people and software. So, but in our instance, I don't know if the other companies around, but in our instance, it's been positive for us.
Do you think your industry then will expand or contract as a result of automation and digitization?
That's a very good question. As it stands right now, I think we're still on a growth trajectory. And one of the points that Martin made about finance and the finance departments of big corporations is declining. But yes, they are declining, but that workload's coming to us as an industry through outsourcing. So we are setting up huge finance and accounting centers all around the world to take on this work that these companies want to get rid of because we can do it cheaper, better, faster. But we're hiring these people to do these tasks. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I'm very bullish it's going to be a positive impact.
So ultimately, do you think technology will be a net creator or destroyer of jobs?
Holistically, it's going to be, in my opinion, a creator. But we have to look at it at sector by sector and industry by industry and kind of where we're seeing technology innovate and disrupt. So I think overall, from the overall economy, I think it's going to be a net creator. But at the industry levels, there's going to be some major disruption, some major unemployment or things. People have to be reskilled to do things differently. And I look, again, going back to the earlier thought about how we are growing as a company. But one of the things that we're doing, a couple things, is we're investing. We've got a $500 million innovation fund where we're going out and looking at all these small companies around the world who have innovation or innovative technologies. So we're looking at those to either acquire, invest in, bring to our clients. So we're kind of pushing that envelope as well. But we also have the ability to train 15,000 people at one time on new technologies. So I think our growth, when we go from 160 to 180,000 people, we have the ability to retrain a massive amount of people on new things, how to reskill them and to do new jobs and so forth. So just from where I sit, I think it's going to be a very positive impact.
What's your take on Martin Ford's premise that robots are taking over the world and are going to do most of the jobs that humans are now doing?
Great. Thanks, Sonia, for the question. It was a sobering discussion. And I think in many ways he's very correct. I think what Martin laid out is a future that we see with automation. I think we see more and more companies accelerating the automation, accelerating what it can do. Technology's advancing to the point. I think where I probably disagree with Martin a little bit is I actually do see a lot of bright sides that are coming from it. So I spent last week in India talking to lots of different firms. I spent lots of time in Silicon Valley. And I see this whole growth of analytics and automation that's providing insights that we've never had before, capabilities to look at things that we haven't been able to see, so new jobs being created. I think Martin's right, probably not at the same rate, probably going to be some challenges there, but it's very interesting what we're seeing. So it was a very insightful conversation, very insightful.
How will that impact the global services industry?
It already has tremendously. So we see deals now where 25 to 30% of the labor, so the labor of a deal, is being reduced as we move forward. The automation piece, probably over the last 18 months, has truly reached a tipping point in the market. So we're at the point now when we go in and we help a large organization really think through their strategy. Automation is a key of that. And what's interesting is automation isn't just about cost reduction. It's not just about taking out labor. Automation is really, again, about the analytics and the insights. So if I have a process or a function, I can automate it, then I can start looking at it. I can start gaining different insights. Once I do that, I can improve it. Well, once I improve it, I can start generating revenue from that. So actually, we're using automation to generate new revenue streams, new data streams that wasn't there before. So again, I'm pretty on the optimistic side that I think there's a good trend that's happening because of it.
So do you think the industry then is going to expand or contract as a result of automation and digitization?
It's a great question because, again, over the last 5 years, the entire industry has talked about nonlinear revenue. The entire industry has said everything that I do today is based upon an individual working X number of hours and me being able to bill for that. What we're finally seeing is that I can use automation and technology to price based on value. And so I think the industry actually, from a revenue standpoint, is going to accelerate. I think from a margin standpoint, it's going to accelerate. And we're clearly going to go through this period of disruption with the labor force and what we're going to do. But I think we're creating so many different types of jobs that I'm still incredibly optimistic for what it means for my kids and even my grandkids as we go forward.
What are the hottest new uses then of technology and in the sourcing industry today?
Oh my gosh, analytics. So again, I spent all of last week in Bangalore, India. Incredible energy, great things going on. All I heard about was what was happening on the analytics front. All I heard about were all the great things and insights that companies are doing. So being able to do this deep probing of things and come out and do it. I was with one company, I was actually with Wipro last week. And Wipro had some incredible technology where I could go into a virtual store and I could pick up a box of software. I could turn the box around just with my hands, not touching anything. It would show me all the things. And then in the back office, it was giving me lots of details about what was happening. Incredible use of technology. On the healthcare side, things like IBM Watson is providing deep insights on what's happening. So things on curing cancer, curing other diseases that we've never been able to do at the same level. We're now being able to plug in tremendous amounts of data and get analysis back. So the level of analytics, how it's changing the world, I'm very sincere about that. It's going to be incredible what's happening in that space.
Ultimately, do you think technology will be a net creator or destroyer of jobs?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think if we look at it from a pure job standpoint, I think you'd have to agree that it's going to be a net destroyer to some degree. I think what's happening, though, is the nature of jobs is changing. I think what Martin didn't talk about today and what I really like about his book, Lights in the Tunnel and Rise of the Robots, is he does talk a lot about what are the new incentives. So what does job sharing mean? What could you do from an environmentalist standpoint? How could companies create new incentives that aren't necessarily aligned with the number of hours that you work or what you produce in that? Those are the things that I think are going to be pretty interesting. So as we think through that, there may be fewer jobs, so I think it will be a net destroyer, but I think there's going to be different incentives, again, this would be the word I use, that are going to drive out new capabilities there. So I think it's still kind of a rosy future from my perspective.
If you had one word of advice for your grandkids someday on their education or their kind of career choices, what would it be?
I would use two. Be very creative, be very flexible. I think when we look at the new things, you've got to be creative in these days, and you've got to be able to be agile and flexible on what you're going to do. You can't say that I just want to be a reporter and that's what I'm going to do, right? I may want to be a reporter and I want to do these three things with it, associated with it, and let your career kind of go in very different ways. You can't do rote work anymore. You've got to be creative in this market. So it's a key piece of what we're doing.
Thank you for joining us at SIC 2015, where the sourcing industry is coming together to share ideas and become future smart. I'm Sonia Van Sickle.